So the other thing I had was a Superman idea. Well, a DC Universe idea. And I was looking at how they did the transition from the Golden Age to the Silver Age. Now, of course, part of the reason that transition happened was during predominantly the 50s, many of the superhero comics were discontinued. The only heroes that of DC that went all through the 50s were Superman, Batman, Aquaman, oddly the Green Arrow, and Wonder Woman. And then Julie Schwartz decided to revive the heroes, but he went from, especially those that were magical, and gave them sci-fi origins. So Green Lantern went from magic ring to alien weapon and a new identity. Barry Allen instead of Jay Garrick. The Atom wasn't just a very short, super strong man, but now a person who actually became incredibly small. And so forth. So my thought was, okay, so if you started another age, you would have to restart the stories again. So it couldn't be an exact retelling. And I felt you had to start with Superman. And then I was like, oh, so what's the hook? And I decided, well, one of the key hooks for both Superman and Batman were dead parents. So that was my first rule. No dead parents. So, get comfortable, folks. We're going to go down this story avenue now. Just for a little bit. Indulge me. It's been that kind of night. So, my idea, and I actually wrote some of this down. I've had notes somewhere. My idea goes like this. So, Krypton. Now, in most current tellings, Krypton was a planet with a single government. How realistic is that? So I decided no. Krypton was a planet with several cities. Kandor was the capital of one nation. And the nation of Kandor, the royal family of Kandor, were the Elves. So of course, you have the El family, but due to the rules of royal succession, of course, only the eldest son gets the throne. And so, in my story, Jor-El is the third son of the ruler of Kandor. Well, he's never going to be king. He's got two brothers ahead of him. So he was free to do whatever he wanted. And he pursued science. And was making breakthroughs on faster than light travel. And had even gotten to the point of creating a prototype ship that he was going to do some tests on soon, when war broke out with a neighboring country, led by General Zod. And Zod's forces overran Kandor. And part of that was they went and were assassinating the royal family. But Jor-El and his wife Laura, since they were in the lab at the time of the attack, were able to make an escape in Jor-El's prototype ship. And they went to a world that Jor-El had discovered, because the native species seems so much like Kryptonians, which of course is Earth. So Jor-El and Laura land on Earth. And fortunately, they make contact with a human who can help them establish identities. That human is, of course, Dr. Thomas Wayne. Now, Jor-El, being he has advanced science of Krypton, he and Thomas come to a deal that he is going to help share scientific so they can, make a little money. And Thomas helps Jor-El and Laura establish new identities on Earth as Jonathan and Martha Kent. And of course, being under Earth's environment, turns out that Jor-El and Laura are, stronger than average for sure. And after a while, Jor-El, with his sense of justice, especially after what happened to his family on Krypton, adopts an identity as Superman, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Not fly, mind you, no. But leap tall buildings in a single bound. He is bulletproof, although a artillery shell might give him some trouble. He can lift up a car, but certainly not a train. He's fast. Certainly faster than a speeding bullet, but not faster than a jet. And Thomas occasionally helps him under the guise of the Bat. But what really gets things kicking off is the next generation of their family line. Because, of course, Jor-El and Laura have children on Earth. Children born on Earth who are exposed to the yellow sun from birth and ultimately develop far greater powers than their parents. So Jor-El and Laura have 3 children. Their eldest daughter, Karen. Their middle child, their son Clark, and their youngest daughter, Linda. Now, by this time, after various injuries and some close calls, Jonathan had decided to retire as Superman. And around that same time, Thomas retired the identity of the Bat, especially since he and his wife wanted to focus on raising their son, Bruce, who, of course, is raised as a childhood friend of Clark because their fathers were such good friends. So Clark becomes Superman because he's got all this power, and again, a bit of the sense of justice from his father. Bruce becomes Batman partly out of almost sibling rivalry with Clark. But again, no dead parents. And of course, where does Wonder Woman come in? Well, Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, joined them in an important battle, joined Jonathan and Thomas in an important battle to save her people in the world, but in the process broke Amazonian law and was exiled, where she settled down with, it could be Steve Trevor or someone else. The point is, she settles down and has a daughter, Diana, who is an Amazonian princess in exile. See where I'm going with this? So that's where your big 3 come from. Their parents are fine, but they all have various reasons. Now here's the kicker. Clark first adapts the identity of Superman while he's in college. Clark's best friend and college roommate is a brilliant scientific student named Lex Luthor. Unbeknownst, well, to anyone really, Lex, while he's a brilliant scientist, also has a larcenous side, which he indulges under the identity of Brainiac. So Clark Kent and Lex Luthor are the best of friends, but Superman and Brainiac are bitter enemies. Did he steal 40 cakes? You know, the best thing would be put a gag with 40 cakes in there. Because that's terrible. And then all the other heroes, you just can spin out of whatever you do with this. But that's how I would start things out. You know, so it's... The characters have familiarity. They have the same identities. Clark Kent is still Superman. Oh, by the way, he's a blogger. Yeah, Bruce Wayne is idle rich. But Bruce isn't dour and, you know, all the other mental issues of Batman because his parents didn't die. He's just an overachiever. And of course, eventually Clark's sisters will get him. Karen, of course, will become a later Power Girl, and Linda Supergirl. Part of the story works off the idea that Clark very much has middle child syndrome. Anyway, so that's about as far as I developed the idea. But it was just playing with those thoughts of how do you make a new version of Superman that isn't just retreading what we already know? I remember at one point that DC had this, we're going to do a new comic series called Earth One, and it's going to be a modern take on Superman. Unfortunately, this modern take still started with, and Krypton blew up, and the Kents died. So back to dead parents. It's like, we're going to do a modern take, and it just wasn't really that different than what had gone before. And if you're going to do a real take, really do things different. Change it up. And I've never seen anyone change it up enough. You know, Superman still has the issues of being the sole survivor. That's another thing in the story. Krypton didn't explode. Krypton is still out there. And what if General Zod is obsessed about the idea that there are still members of the L family, the rightful heirs to the throne of Kandor? So you have the option of Kryptonian invaders of Earth. They won't have Superman's powers, but they'll have power. And whatever advanced technology they now have. Maybe the Green Lantern is an actual alien on Earth disguised as a human. I would also have the Martian Manhunter not be from Mars. He's just called that because that's what somebody called him the first time they saw him. They called him Martian. He decided to just go with it. As for the Flash, I'm not sure what I'd do with the Flash. Would have to be something different. I think what I would do with the Flash is his gaining super speed was deliberate. Becoming super fast was the goal. Wasn't an accident that happened to empower him. So those are my takes. I hope you found that interesting. Again, these are basically, that's just a huge writing prompt. How did a new age of heroes come about?